Hi everybody, this is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, April 29th, and welcome to our video commentary. Today we're going to remember Duke Ellington, who was one of the great musicians of the 20th century. He was born on this day, April 30th, 1899. He was born in Washington, D.C., and throughout the 20th century became one of the great jazz masters of American music and very popular everywhere around the world. If you love jazz, well, you knew who Duke Ellington was. But there's something about the Duke Ellington story that a lot of people may not be familiar with, and that is the role that he played, or his music played, in bringing jazz music to not just the people in the Soviet bloc, but many people around the world who didn't have a chance to hear music during that time. The Voice of America had a program every night at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, and it was called the Jazz Hour, and it was broadcast all over the world, to primarily directed at people in the communist bloc, but anybody in the world could listen to it if you had a shortwave radio. And the intro for that program was "Take the A Train," one of the great songs in Duke Ellington's repertoire. And when I was a kid growing up in Cuba, my dad used to listen to that show on the Voice of America on our shortwave radio. And I would always sit with my dad hearing the news, and then that song would come on, meaning that the jazz program was about to begin. And I love the song, I love the intro, and never quite got around to asking my dad who sang that or who recorded that. And then when I came to the United States, I remember one time listening to the radio and I heard that song and I said, "Who is that?" And a friend of mine said, "Well, that's Duke Ellington, Take the A Train." So then I realized that Take the A Train for all those years had been the intro, taking American music, jazz music, to all over the world, particularly people living in the Soviet world, or in the case of us living in Cuba, and so on. So Duke Ellington in his own way was able to penetrate the Iron Curtain, the Berlin Wall, and even into communist Cuba every night, bringing American music, jazz music, to so many people around the world, particularly people living under communism. And in many of these countries, you would take a risk if you would listen to the Voice of America. That was the case in Cuba for sure. So very often people would turn down the volume or have little transistors or so on, that they would hear these broadcasts. But there it was, all over the world, millions of people every night listening to jazz. And the beginning of the show was "Take the A Train" by Duke Ellington. So I remember Duke Ellington today, and I think of the many, many nights that I listened to the Voice of America, and I heard that intro to the jazz program that my dad would enjoy from time to time. Thank you for watching. We have all of these on YouTube, on Twitter, and on my blog. And if today is your birthday, happy birthday. Bye-bye, everybody.